The human stumbled into our sacred combat pit covered in his own blood, clutching what appeared to be a broken piece of scrap metal, and somehow managed to look bored. My name is Korvac Stonefist. I, Gladiator of the Third Spiral, veteran of 200 death matches, and I have never seen anything quite so magnificently ridiculous in my four-armed life. Here we were, 37 of the galaxy's most feared warriors gathered for the tournament of endless screaming, and this pink squishy thing just walked in like he owned the place. The human's designation, according to his torn uniform, read Marcus Kane. He stood barely 2 meters tall, possessed an embarrassing lack of natural weapons, and had the audacity to yawn while surveying our sacred killing ground. The irony was not lost on me that we called this the Tournament of Endless Screaming, and the only sound coming from him was a tired sigh. "Excuse me," Marcus said, his voice carrying that peculiar human flatness that somehow made everything sound like a complaint. "Is this the repair bay for Orbital Transport 7? Because I have been walking through this metal maze for 3 hours, and frankly my patience died somewhere around Corridor 47. Thrackan the Bone Render, whose very presence had caused lesser species to evacuate their bowels, tilted his massive head. His mandibles clicked in confusion. "You seek repairs?" "My shuttle's engine decided to have an existential crisis mid-flight," Marcus explained, apparently oblivious to the fact that he was surrounded by beings who had literally eaten their way through entire armies. "One minute I'm cruising to the mining station. Next minute I'm playing asteroid pinball with a busted hyperdrive. Crash-landed in your charming little Colosseum here. The Arena Master, Dracomar, the Soul Crusher, rose from his throne of bones. His voice thundered across the pit like grinding stone. "Human, you have violated the sacred space of warriors. The penalty is death by combat." Marcus looked around, finally seeming to notice the weapons, the blood-stained sand, and the very obvious signs that this was not in fact a repair facility. His response was peak human. "Well, that's just fantastic. Today keeps getting better." I should mention that humans had only recently made contact with our galactic community. The rumors about them were contradictory. Some spoke of their incredible stubbornness, others of their bizarre tendency to form emotional attachments to inanimate objects. Most dismissed them as another weak species destined for the processing plants. Standing there in our arena, Marcus Kane looked like he might prove the dismissive camp correct. He was lean but not muscled, tired but not defeated, and carrying himself with the casual indifference of someone who had clearly given up on the day going well hours ago. "So," Marcus said, hefting the piece of scrap metal like he was testing its weight, "I'm guessing this isn't a voluntary participation situation." "The Tournament of Endless Screaming accepts no withdrawals," Dracmore proclaimed. "You entered our sacred space during the ritual combat. The gods of war demand blood." "Your gods sound like they need a hobby," Marcus muttered, then raised his voice. "Fine. Who's first? Because I have got a schedule to keep, assuming I survive the next 10 minutes, which, let's be honest, seems unlikely." The crowd of warriors began to laugh. It started as a rumble from Gorthak the Mountain Splitter, and spread through the assembled gladiators like wildfire. Here was this fragile human speaking to legendary killers like they were inconveniencing him at a grocery store. "I claim first blood," roared Vashti the Crimson, a 4-meter-tall reptilian warrior whose scales had been stained red by the blood of 1,000 enemies. She entered the arena dragging a massive warhammer that had crushed starships. "I will make this quick, little soft thing. Your death will be merciful." Marcus examined his improvised weapon, a twisted piece of his shuttle's hull plating. "Merciful, right. Because nothing says mercy like a hammer the size of a small vehicle." The combat began with Vashti's traditional war cry, a sound that had reportedly shattered mountains. Marcus's response was to take a step sideways and comment, "Well, that's going to echo in my ears for weeks." What happened next would be discussed in warrior halls across the galaxy for generations. Vashti charged with the fury of 10 supernovas, her hammer raised high enough to crack the arena's dome. Any sane being would have dodged, rolled, or at minimum attempted some form of defensive posture. Marcus Kane did something far more dangerous. He calculated. The human moved with the precise timing of someone who had spent his life working with machinery, understanding momentum and leverage, and the exact point at which things break. As Vashti's hammer descended, Marcus stepped forward, not back, sliding under her guard with a movement so efficient it seemed choreographed. His improvised weapon found the gap between her chest plates with surgical precision. It wasn't a powerful blow, but it was perfectly placed, and more importantly, it carried the full weight of Vashti's own downward momentum. The sound of metal-piercing scales echoed through the suddenly silent arena. Vashti the Crimson, terror of 7 systems, killer of armies, looked down at the human-sized hole in her chest with what I can only describe as profound confusion. She had time to say, "How did you?" before toppling backward like a felled tree. The arena fell silent except for the wet sound of Vashti's final breath leaving her body. Marcus stood over the corpse, looking at his bloodied improvised weapon with mild interest. Sharper than it looked. The silence stretched until Gorthik the Mountain Splitter broke it with a sound that was part roar, part laugh. The human fights like machinery, cold and precise. "I fight like someone who wants to go home," Marcus corrected, already turning to face the next challenger. "Who's next? Because at this rate I might actually make my dinner reservation." That was the moment everything changed. Not just the tournament, but our understanding of what humans actually were. We had expected them to fight like beasts, all rage and desperation. Instead, Marcus Kane fought like a natural disaster, calm and inevitable, and utterly without mercy. Korvad the Voidwalker stepped into the arena next. He was a shadow dancer, a being who could phase in and out of reality itself. His fighting style relied on appearing behind enemies at the exact moment of their confusion. "Human," Corvin hissed, his form already beginning to flicker. "You will not see death coming." "I never do," Marcus replied, conversationally. "It's one of life's little surprises." Corvan vanished, becoming one with the shadows that danced across the arena floor. This was his signature move, the ability that had made him legendary among assassins. He could strike from anywhere, at any angle, completely invisible to normal sight. Marcus closed his eyes and tilted his head, listening. The arena held its collective breath. Even veteran gladiators struggled against Korvad in these shadow-walking abilities. How could this pink, soft human hope to? Marcus's improvised weapon swept in a perfect arc, connecting with what appeared to be empty air. There was a wet thud, and suddenly Corvan the Voidwalker was very visible, very solid, and very dead. The blade had caught him mid-phase, at the exact moment when he was transitioning from shadow to substance. "Vibrations," Marcus explained to the stunned crowd. "Everything makes vibrations. Learned that working on mining equipment, engines, pumps, hydraulics, they all have their own sound signature. Interdimensional shadow dancing apparently sounds like a broken cooling system." He prodded Corvin's body with his foot. Little higher pitched, though. The crowd's mood was shifting. What had started as amusement was becoming something else. Respect, maybe, or fear. With warriors, the two often looked identical. Drakmor the Soul Crusher descended from his throne, his massive form casting shadows across the blood-soaked sand. "Human Marcus Kane, you have slain 2 champions. The tournament of endless screaming demands you face me." Marcus looked up at the arena master, all 4 meters of scarred flesh and ritual scars and weapons that had ended civilizations. His response was pure human practicality. "Do I have a choice in the matter? Death is the only escape from our sacred tournament." "Right, well, since I'm having such a stellar day, let's get this over with." Marcus rolled his shoulders like he was preparing for a particularly annoying day at the office. "Fair warning, though, I'm really not in the mood for any dramatic speeches about honor or destiny or whatever. I just want to find a repair shop and maybe a sandwich." Drakmor's laugh shook the arena foundations. "You speak of sandwiches while facing death, human. I admire your courage, even if it stems from ignorance." "It stems from hunger," Marcus corrected. "I haven't eaten in 8 hours, my shuttle is scrap metal, and I'm covered in alien blood." At this point, death might actually be an improvement. The arena master raised his weapon, a massive blade forged from the heart of a dying star. Its edge could cut through reality itself. "Then let me grant you that mercy. The battle that followed would redefine how the galaxy understood warfare. Drakmor fought like a force of nature, each swing of his cosmic blade tearing through space-time itself. The air around his weapon rippled with energy that could atomize planets. He was power incarnate, destruction given form, the culmination of 1,000 years of combat evolution. Marcus fought like an engineer fixing a particularly stubborn piece of equipment. Where Drakmor sought to overwhelm with raw power, Marcus found the mechanical weak points in his opponent's style. The slight overextension after each massive swing, the predictable pattern of his footwork, the way his enormous weapon created its own vulnerabilities through sheer momentum. "Stand still and die with honor," Drakmor roared, his blade carving a canyon in the arena floor where Marcus had been standing a millisecond earlier. "Honor doesn't pay my bills," Marcus replied, already moving to his next position. "And standing still sounds like a terrible survival strategy." The human treated the cosmic blade like it was just another hazard on a construction site. Dangerous, yes, but manageable if you understood how it worked. He danced around its edge with the casual competence of someone who had spent years working around heavy machinery that could kill you if you made one mistake. Drakmor's attacks grew more desperate, more wild. He was used to opponents who met his power with their own power, who engaged in the glorious test of strength that defined arena combat. Marcus Kane refused to play by those rules. Instead, the human did something that would haunt warrior cultures for generations. He made the arena master look clumsy. Every missed swing, every stumble, every moment where Drakmor's own massive weapon threw him off balance, Marcus was there to exploit it. Not with overwhelming force, but with precise, calculated strikes that accumulated damage like interest on a loan. A cut across the back of the knee. A thrust between armor plates. A slice across the weapon arm that made Drakmor's grip falter. None of them would have been fatal individually. Together they were death by 1,000 efficient calculations. "Impossible," Drakmor gasped, falling to one knee as his cosmic blade clattered across the arena floor. "You fight without passion, without rage. How can you kill without emotion?" Marcus stood over the fallen arena master, his improvised weapon poised for the killing blow. "I kill with efficiency. Emotion would just slow me down." The arena fell silent. 34 of the galaxy's most feared warriors watched as a tired human mechanic prepared to execute their champion. "Any last words?" Marcus asked, his tone suggesting this was just another item on his checklist. Drakmor, the Soul Crusher, veteran of 1,000 battles, destroyer of worlds, looked up at this unremarkable human and said the words that would echo through warrior culture forever. "Teach us." Marcus blinked. "I'm sorry." "What?" "Teach us to fight as you fight. Without passion, without fury, with only the cold precision of victory." Drakmor's voice carried across the arena. "I have never seen such perfect killing technique." The crowd of warriors began to murmur agreement. They had witnessed something unprecedented. Not just the defeat of their champions, but a completely alien approach to combat that rendered their traditional methods obsolete. Marcus looked around at the assembled gladiators, then down at Drakmor, then at his improvised weapon. "You want me to teach you how to be practical?" "We want you to teach us how to win," Drakmor said. "We have fought for glory, for honor, for the pleasure of combat. But you fight for victory alone. Pure, clean, inevitable." "I fight to go home and have dinner," Marcus said flatly. "Everything else is just obstacle removal." The crowd erupted in cheers. Warriors who had spent their lives pursuing the perfect death were suddenly faced with the perfect killer. Someone who treated combat not as art or religion or passion, but as simply another problem to be solved efficiently. Gorthak the Mountain Splitter knelt in the sand. "Teach us, human Marcus Kane. Show us this path of cold victory." One by one, the greatest warriors in the galaxy knelt before a tired human mechanic who just wanted to fix his shuttle and go home. Marcus stared at the kneeling gladiators with the expression of someone who had clearly taken a wrong turn somewhere and ended up in the middle of someone else's bad day. "This is not what I signed up for when I took the mining station job." But as he looked around at these legendary killers offering him their devotion, something shifted in his tired eyes. Maybe it was the realization that he had accidentally stumbled into something significant. Maybe it was the understanding that these beings could actually help him get off this planet and back to his normal boring life. Or maybe Marcus Kane simply recognized an opportunity when he saw one. "Fine," he said, his voice carrying the resignation of someone accepting an unwanted promotion. "But we are doing this my way. No more ritual combat. No more sacred honor. No more dramatic speeches about destiny." He gestured with his blood-stained improvised weapon. "We are going to learn how to fight like the universe is a machine that needs fixing, and everything standing in our way is just a broken component that needs to be removed." The warriors cheered like they had just discovered fire. Marcus Kane had walked into the wrong arena looking for a repair shop. He was about to leave with something far more dangerous than he could have imagined. A cult of the galaxy's most efficient killers, all convinced that he held the secret to perfect warfare. The irony was that he actually did. And somewhere in the back of his tired, practical mind, Marcus was beginning to realize that his boring life as a mining station mechanic might be coming to an end. Whether he wanted it to or not, the tournament of endless screaming was over. What came next would be far more interesting, and infinitely more dangerous. 3 weeks later, Marcus Kane stood in what used to be the tournament of endless screaming and watched 37 of the galaxy's most feared warriors attempt to disassemble a broken mining drone with the focused intensity of surgeons. "No, no, no," Marcus said, his voice carrying that special tone of exhausted patience that only comes from explaining the same thing 17 times. "Brewdog, you are still thinking like a gladiator. Stop trying to intimidate the machinery. It doesn't have feelings." Brutok, the flesh render, whose claws could slice through starship hulls, looked up from the drone's engine compartment with genuine confusion. "But if I show dominance over the machine, surely it will submit to my will." "It's a machine, Brutok. It runs on physics, not fear." Marcus rubbed his temples. "Just follow the maintenance manual. Step by step. Like we practiced." The transformation of the arena had been Marcus's first practical lesson. Instead of blood-soaked sand and bone thrones, the space now housed workbenches, tool racks, and enough spare parts to build a small fleet. The warriors had embraced this change with the same fanatical devotion they once reserved for ritual combat. It was, Marcus reflected, deeply unsettling. Master Kane Drakmor approached, his massive form now draped in maintenance coveralls that had been specially tailored to accommodate his 4 arms. "The delegation from the Hegemony Council has arrived. They demand to speak with you about irregularities in local combat reports." Marcus looked up from the targeting system he was recalibrating. The Hegemony Council. The galactic government that maintained order through a careful balance of politics, economics, and strategic intimidation. Also, according to the news feeds he'd been catching up on, the organization currently engaged in a rather messy war with something called the Void Swarm. "Let me guess," Marcus said, setting down his tools. "They have noticed that the tournament of endless screaming hasn't had any screaming lately." "Among other concerns," Drakmor admitted, "there have been questions about our new training methods, and the modifications we have made to our equipment, and the tactical consulting we have been providing to passing merchants." That last part had been an accident. A trade convoy had stopped for repairs, got attacked by pirates, and Marcus's newly trained gladiators had responded with such devastating efficiency that word spread. Apparently, watching legendary warriors dismantle enemy ships like they were fixing broken appliances had made quite an impression. Master Kane Korvac approached, his stone-like features arranged in what might have been concern. "The council delegation includes Admiral Nexus Thorn. He commands the 5th Battle Fleet." Marcus knew that name. Admiral Thorn was famous for 2 things: winning impossible battles and having absolutely no sense of humor about it. His tactical genius was matched only by his reputation for executing subordinates who disappointed him. "Wonderful," Marcus muttered. Another fan club meeting. The delegation arrived with all the subtlety of an orbital bombardment. Admiral Thorn himself was a Zenteria, species that looked like someone had decided humans weren't quite intimidating enough and added extra height, chrome skin, and eyes that glowed with nuclear fire. He swept into the former arena flanked by a squad of Council Guard elites and an expression that suggested he was already planning executions. "Which one of you is the human?" Thorn demanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. Marcus raised his hand like he was in school. That would be me, Marcus Kane, currently between jobs. How can I help you, Admiral? Kiner's glowing eyes fixed on Marcus with the intensity of targeting lasers. You can explain why this facility has stopped producing combat data for Council records. The Tournament of Endless Screaming is a registered gladiatorial venue. Its fights generate tactical intelligence for our military databases. We stopped the death matches, Marcus said simply. Seemed wasteful. These warriors are too skilled to waste on entertainment. The temperature in the arena seemed to drop several degrees. Admiral Thorne stepped closer, his chrome skin reflecting the workshop lights like polished armor. You stopped the tournament. You, a single human, convinced 37 legendary gladiators to abandon their sacred calling. I convinced them that winning was more important than dying gloriously, Marcus corrected. Turns out they were surprisingly open to the concept. Master Kane speaks wisdom, Drakmor interjected, his 4 arms folded across his massive chest. We have learned efficiency, purpose. The old ways were inefficient. Admiral Thorne's laugh was like grinding metal. Efficiency. From Gladiators. His glowing eyes swept across the workshop, taking in the tool benches, the technical manuals, the warriors hunched over maintenance projects. This is what you have made of the galaxy's greatest fighters. Mechanics? Combat engineers, Marcus said. There's a difference. Show me. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Admiral Thorne stepped into the center of the arena, his council guard forming a protective circle around him. I want to see this efficiency you speak of. My guards are trained by the finest military academies in the galaxy. Each one is worth 10 regular soldiers. Marcus looked around at his converted gladiators. They had stopped their work and were watching the exchange with the focused attention of predators evaluating prey. Admiral, with respect, that sounds like a terrible idea. I am ordering a demonstration, Thorne said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. My guards against your mechanics. Right here, right now. Admiral, Marcus tried again. My people haven't been training for glory or honor. They have been training to solve problems efficiently. Your guards might get hurt. Thorne's smile was all teeth and nuclear fire. Human, my guards have conquered 17 systems. They have fought void spawn and crystal hive minds and things that don't have names in civilized languages. I think they can handle a few reformed gladiators. Marcus sighed. Drakmor, clear some space. Looks like we are doing a demonstration. What followed would be analyzed in military academies for decades. The council guards moved with perfect formation discipline. Their weapons raised, their tactics textbook perfect. They were elite soldiers, trained from birth, equipped with the finest technology the Hegemony could provide. They approached the gladiators like they were engaging a conventional enemy force. The gladiators responded like they were fixing a particularly stubborn piece of machinery. There was no battle cry, no dramatic charge, no ritualistic display of combat prowess. Instead, Marcus's warriors moved with the methodical precision of a well-oiled machine. Each gladiator had been assigned a specific function, a particular problem to solve within the larger equation of victory. Gorthak, the mountain splitter, didn't try to overpower the enemy formation. Instead, he analyzed their movement patterns, identified the weak points in their tactical cohesion, and applied precisely the right amount of force to cause systematic collapse. Brutak, the flesh-render, didn't attempt to intimidate his opponents. He simply calculated the most efficient way to disable their equipment and executed the plan with surgical precision. The entire engagement lasted exactly 43 seconds. When the dust settled, 12 Council Guard elites lay unconscious in the arena sand. None of them were dead, which Marcus considered a marked improvement over the old tournament system. They had simply been deactivated. Like someone had found their off switches. Admiral Thorne stared at his defeated guards with an expression of absolute incomprehension. Oh, what did they? Standard problem-solving methodology, Marcus explained, helping one of the unconscious guards into a more comfortable position. Identify the objective. Analyze the obstacles. Apply the minimum necessary force to achieve the desired outcome. Your people will wake up in a few hours with nothing worse than bruised egos. They neutralized my elite guard in under a minute, Thorne whispered. Without killing them. Killing is inefficient unless it's specifically required, Marcus said. These weren't enemies. They were test subjects. Different problem, different solution. The Admiral's glowing eyes fixed on Marcus with an intensity that could have melted steel. Human Marcus Kane, I came here to shut down your operation and arrest you for disrupting Council regulations. And now. Admiral Thorne was quiet for a long moment, his chrome features reflecting the workshop lights as he processed what he had just witnessed. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a tone Marcus had not expected. Now I want to hire you. The arena fell silent. Even the unconscious Council guards seemed to listen. The Hegemony is at war, Thorne continued. The Void Swarm has overrun 17 systems. Our conventional tactics are failing against an enemy that doesn't follow standard combat doctrine. We need unconventional solutions. Marcus looked around at his gladiators, who were already moving to tend to the defeated guards with the same methodical efficiency they applied to everything else. Admiral, I'm a mining station mechanic who took a wrong turn. I'm not a military consultant. You turned legendary gladiators into the most efficient fighting force I have ever seen, Thorne replied. You defeated my elite guard using principles I don't even understand. The Hegemony Council will pay any price for that kind of tactical innovation. Any price. Name your terms. Marcus was quiet for a moment, his tired eyes surveying the workshop that had become his accidental kingdom. These warriors had followed him not because he promised them glory or honor, but because he had shown them something they had never imagined. The possibility of perfect victory. I want full autonomy, Marcus said finally. No interference from Council bureaucrats. No traditional military oversight. My people operate according to my methods, not your regulations. Done. I want access to your technical databases, your strategic intelligence and your logistics networks. Granted. And I want a proper workshop. This arena setup is fine for training, but if we are going to war, we will need real facilities. Admiral Thorne's smile was like watching a star ignite. Human Marcus Kane, you will have an entire orbital platform, state-of-the-art facilities, unlimited resources, and a direct line to high command. Marcus looked at Drakmor, who nodded gravely. The arena master had become his unofficial second-in-command, translating Marcus's practical approach into terms the other warriors could understand and implement. There's one more thing, Marcus said. I don't want your people calling this a military unit or a special forces team or any of that dramatic nonsense. What should we call it? Marcus gestured around the workshop, at the gladiators who had become mechanics, at the tools that had replaced weapons, at the systematic approach that had replaced ritual combat. Call it the Maintenance Division. Admiral Thorne's laugh echoed through the arena like controlled thunder. The Maintenance Division. I love it. When can you be ready for deployment? Marcus checked his chronometer. It was a habit left over from his mining station days, when keeping schedule meant the difference between quotas and unemployment. How long until your next major engagement with the Void Swarm? 2 weeks. The Fifth Fleet is scheduled to defend the Kepler Junction. Intelligence suggests the Swarm will throw everything they have at it. Then we will be ready in 10 days, Marcus said. But Admiral, you should know something about my methods. What's that? Marcus's tired eyes held a glint that Admiral Thorne would later describe as absolutely terrifying. I don't fight to win battles. I fight to solve problems. And from what I understand about this Void Swarm, they are about to become a very solvable problem. The Admiral's chrome features reflected something that might have been anticipation. Show me how to solve them, human Marcus Kane. With pleasure, Marcus replied. But first, we are going to need bigger tools. As the Admiral's delegation departed to arrange their new partnership, Marcus stood in his workshop surrounded by 37 of the galaxy's most efficient killers, all of them looking at him with the devoted attention of students waiting for their next lesson. Korvac approached, his stone features arranged in what passed for curiosity among his people. Master Kane, are we truly going to war? Marcus picked up his tools and returned to the targeting system he had been working on. No, Korvac, We are going to do maintenance on a very large scale. The Gladiator considered this for a moment. Will there be explosions? Probably. And precision engineering? Definitely. In the systematic elimination of inefficient systems, Marcus looked up from his work, his expression carrying that mixture of exhaustion and determination that had become his trademark. Korvac, we are about to teach the entire galaxy what happens when you run a proper maintenance schedule on a war. The former arena master's laugh rumbled through the workshop like distant thunder. Around them, 36 other warriors continued their methodical preparations, each one focused on their assigned tasks with the single-minded devotion that Marcus had taught them. In 10 days they would face an enemy that had conquered 17 systems and defied the galaxy's greatest military minds. The Void Swarm was about to learn what Marcus Kane had already taught the Tournament of Endless Screaming, that there was no problem so complex it couldn't be solved with the right tools, the right approach, and the absolute determination to treat everything as fixable, even if it meant taking the entire universe apart and putting it back together correctly. The maintenance division was about to go to work, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Void Swarm arrived at Kepler Junction like a nightmare, having a particularly bad day. Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the orbital platform designated Maintenance Station Alpha, watching through reinforced viewports as reality itself seemed to develop a severe rash. The enemy fleet didn't fly through space so much as infected, their biomechanical ships pulsing with organic lights that hurt to look at directly. Contact in 17 minutes, Admiral Thorne reported, his chrome features reflecting the tactical displays that painted the approaching horror in helpful shades of red. Intelligence counts 4,000 enemy vessels. Preliminary scans suggest they are using some form of living technology that adapts to conventional weapons. Marcus sipped his coffee and consulted his maintenance tablet. Mylogical systems, self-repairing, self-modifying, probably powered by some form of metabolic process. He looked up at the approaching swarm with the clinical interest of someone diagnosing a particularly complex equipment failure. Fascinating. Also completely solvable. Solvable? Admiral Thorne's voice carried the tone of someone who had spent the last 2 weeks watching Marcus turn military doctrine inside out. Human, that fleet has destroyed everything the hegemony has thrown at it. Our best tacticians call them unstoppable. Your best tacticians, Marcus said, have been treating them like an enemy to defeat instead of a system to debug. He activated his comm unit. Maintenance division. This is control. Final systems check. The responses came back with mechanical precision. Dracomar reporting. Heavy modification team ready. Tools calibrated, targets analyzed. Korvac reporting. Precision strike team operational. All equipment functioning within acceptable parameters. Brutok reporting. Disruption team standing by. Electronic warfare packages loaded and ready. 37 individual confirmations, each delivered with the professional competence that Marcus had drilled into them over 10 days of intensive training. They were no longer gladiators playing at being mechanics. They were mechanics who happened to be the galaxy's most efficient killers. Admiral, Marcus said, you are about to see what happens when you apply proper maintenance protocols to an infestation. The first wave of Void Swarm vessels broke through the system's outer perimeter, like diseased fingers reaching through a wound in space. They moved with organic fluidity, their hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to communicate some alien form of coordination. The Hegemony's Fifth Fleet responded with textbook tactics. Concentrated firepower, defensive formations, coordinated strikes aimed at eliminating enemy command structures. It was everything military academies taught, executed with perfect precision. It was also completely ineffective. The swarm vessels absorbed the energy blasts, their living hulls adapting and evolving in real time. What didn't kill them made them stronger. What did damage them triggered rapid regeneration processes that left them more resistant to future attacks. Conventional weapons, showing minimal effectiveness. Admiral Thorne reported, his voice tight with the controlled panic of someone watching their carefully planned strategy crumble. Enemy adaptive capabilities exceed all projections. Of course they do, Marcus said, watching the tactical display with professional interest. You are feeding them data on your weapons systems with every shot. They are learning faster than you can kill them. He opened his comm channel. Maintenance Division. Commence Operation Deep Clean. What happened next would redefine the concept of space warfare. Instead of engaging the swarm vessels directly, Marcus's teams launched toward what appeared to be empty space. Their targeting systems, recalibrated with mining equipment sensors, had identified something the military scanners had missed: the supply lines. Track more. You are tracking the metabolic pathways correctly. Marcus's voice carried across the comm with the calm authority of someone directing a routine repair job. Those bioconduits are how they distribute resources. Cut them here, here, and here. The former Arena Masters' heavy modification team struck with surgical precision, their weapons adapted from industrial cutting tools rather than military hardware. Instead of trying to destroy the swarm vessels, they severed the connections that kept them functioning. Biological systems require constant resource flow, Marcus explained to Admiral Thorne, who was watching the tactical display with growing amazement. Interrupt the supply chain, and even the most adaptive organism starts to malfunction. Across the battlefield, Korvac's precision strike team was implementing Phase 2. Their targets weren't the heavily armored command ships, but the smaller vessels that the Hegemony had dismissed as scouts or support craft. Those aren't scouts, Marcus had explained during the briefing. They are nerve clusters. Biological networks need constant communication to maintain coordination. Remove the communication nodes and you get chaos. The Void Swarm's perfect coordination began to dissolve. Ships that had moved like parts of a single organism suddenly became confused, contradictory, inefficient. They started colliding with each other, their adaptive evolution processes conflicting as different sections of the fleet received incompatible instructions. Brutok. Begin Phase 3, Marcus ordered. The disruption team launched something that looked like a collection of mining probes, but had been modified with components that Marcus insisted on keeping classified. They spread through the increasingly confused swarm formation like digital antibodies. What are those? Admiral Thorne demanded. Diagnostic tools, Marcus replied. Every system has error logs, even biological ones. We are just introducing some critical errors into their adaptive processes. The effect was devastating. Swarm vessels that had been evolving to counter hegemony weapons suddenly found themselves adapting to threats that didn't exist. Their biological systems began consuming resources to defend against imaginary attacks, creating feedback loops that spiraled rapidly out of control. It's a cascade failure, Marcus observed with satisfaction. Their adaptive mechanisms are trying to solve problems we created in their sensory data. They are literally evolving themselves to death. Within an hour, 4,000 Void Swarm vessels had been reduced to biological debris floating in space, like the universe's most disgusting confetti. Not through overwhelming firepower or superior tactics, but through what Marcus insisted on calling aggressive troubleshooting. Admiral Thorne stared at the tactical display in stunned silence. The greatest threat the Hegemony had ever faced had been eliminated by what amounted to a cosmic debugging operation. Human Marcus Kane, the Admiral said finally, you have just won a war that our best military minds said was unwinnable. I fixed a broken system, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. He was interrupted by his comm unit crackling to life. Not from his team, but from an external signal that should have been impossible. The Void Swarm was supposed to be eliminated. Maintenance. Human. The voice was unlike anything Marcus had heard before. Wet, organic, but somehow carrying intelligence that was ancient and vast and deeply annoyed. You have debugged us. Marcus looked at Admiral Thorne, who was frantically signaling his communications team to trace the source. I'm sorry, who is this? We are what you call the Void Swarm. Though that designation lacks precision, we are a distributed biological intelligence, evolved over 17 million years to achieve perfect adaptive efficiency. Were, Marcus corrected. Past tense. You are currently floating in space in several million pieces. The organic laugh that came through the comm was like listening to a star digest itself. You misunderstand. Maintenance human. What you destroyed were our peripheral systems. Our exploration probes. Our data-gathering mechanisms. Marcus felt a cold understanding settle in his stomach like bad coffee. You are saying that wasn't your main force. That was our reconnaissance mission. We came to study your species' military capabilities. Instead, we found something far more interesting. A human who thinks like we do. I think like a mechanic, Marcus said flatly. You think like evolution itself, the voice replied. You identify problems, develop solutions, implement them with ruthless efficiency. You treat warfare as a system to be optimized rather than a conflict to be won. Admiral Thorne was making frantic hand signals that Marcus interpreted as either cut the transmission or having a seizure. Possibly both. What do you want? Marcus asked. We want to hire you. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support systems and what sounded like Admiral Thorne having a very quiet breakdown. You want to hire me, Marcus repeated slowly. To do what? To help us debug the universe. Marcus looked around the bridge at the assembled military personnel, all of whom were staring at him with expressions ranging from horror to fascination. Could you be more specific? The galaxy is inefficient, the swarm voice explained with the patient tone of someone discussing a particularly complex repair manual. Species war against each other instead of cooperating. Resources are wasted on conflict instead of development. Biological and technological evolution proceeds at suboptimal rates due to political and cultural interference. And you want to fix this? We want to optimize it, remove the inefficiencies, streamline the processes, create a more elegant system. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. By eliminating the inefficient species, by integrating them into our distributed intelligence network, we do not destroy maintenance human, we upgrade. The silence on the bridge was broken only by the sound of Admiral Thorne very quietly cursing in 3 different languages. That's a generous offer, Marcus said finally. But I have to decline. Why? Marcus looked out at the debris field that had once been 4,000 enemy vessels, destroyed not through superior firepower but through the systematic application of engineering principles to biological warfare. Because you are missing the point, he said. The inefficiencies you want to eliminate. They are not bugs in the system. They are features. Explain. Conflict drives innovation. Cooperation requires diversity. Chaos creates opportunities for unexpected solutions. Marcus's voice carried the confidence of someone who had spent years fixing systems that officially couldn't be fixed. You want to optimize everything into a single, perfectly efficient network. But perfect efficiency is just another word for stagnation. The organic laugh returned. But this time it carried an edge that made Marcus's maintenance team automatically check their weapons. You would choose chaos over perfection. I would choose a broken system that keeps evolving over a perfect system that stops growing. Fascinating. And if we were to disagree with your assessment? Marcus activated his comm to the maintenance division. All teams, this is Control. Looks like we have a new project. How do you debug something that thinks it's already perfect? The responses came back with cheerful professionalism. Drakemore here. Every system has vulnerabilities. We just need to find the right tools. Korvac reporting. Distributed networks are still networks. Networks can be interrupted. Broduk standing by. Ancient intelligences still follow logical patterns. Logic can be exploited. Marcus smiled at Admiral Thorne, whose chrome features had gone through several interesting color changes during the conversation. Admiral, looks like the maintenance division just got a promotion. We are going from galactic consultants to universe-level technical support. You are declaring war on an entity that spans multiple star systems. Thorne whispered. I'm offering to fix their attitude problem, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. The swarm voice crackled through the common. So one more time. Very well, maintenance human Marcus Kane. You have chosen to defend inefficiency over optimization. We will be interested to see how your debugging techniques perform against a truly adaptive opponent. Looking forward to it, Marcus replied. Fair warning though, I have been dealing with broken systems my entire career, and in my experience, the ones that think they are perfect are usually the easiest to fix. The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in absolute silence. Admiral Thorne was the first to speak. Marcus Kane, you just turned down an offer to help conquer the galaxy and instead declared war on a 17-million-year-old superintelligence. I offered technical support to a system with a fundamental design flaw, Marcus said, already pulling up schematics on his maintenance tablet. They will either accept the help or continue malfunctioning until we have to replace them with something more efficient. He looked up at the stunned Admiral. Don't worry, Thorne. It's just another maintenance job. Admittedly on a universal scale, but the principles remain the same. Korvac's voice came through the comm. Master Kane, should we begin preparations for the next phase of operations? Marcus looked out at the stars, somewhere among which lurked a distributed intelligence that had just made the mistake of treating the galaxy like a system that needed upgrading instead of a universe that needed proper maintenance. Begin preparations, he confirmed. But remember, people, we are not going to war with the Void Swarm. He paused, his tired eyes reflecting the lights of distant stars and the satisfaction of someone who had found their true calling in the most unlikely place imaginable. We are going to teach them the difference between perfection and efficiency. In the depths of space, ancient intelligences that had optimized themselves across millions of years of evolution began to experience something they had not felt since achieving perfect unity: uncertainty. They had encountered many species in their expansion across the galaxy. Warriors, scientists, philosophers, conquerors. All had been integrated or eliminated according to optimal protocols. But they had never before encountered a maintenance engineer who treated the universe like a particularly complex piece of equipment that just needed the right adjustments to run properly. Marcus Kane had walked into the wrong arena and accidentally created a cult. Now he was about to find out what happened when that cult decided the entire universe needed better customer service. The maintenance division was going to work. And 17 million years of perfect evolution was about to discover what humans meant when they said something was due for an upgrade.